When we look at the vast theater of human experience, we find recurring patterns, primordial images that haunt our dreams, myths, and social structures. Carl Gustav Jung called these images archetypes. They are the organs of the psyche, universal forms inherited not in their content, but in their readiness to manifest. And among the most potent, most dominant, and perhaps most dangerous figures stands the father archetype. This is not a mere reference to the personal father, the biological man we encounter in our homes. That would be reducing the ocean to a glass of water. We speak of the senex, the wise old man, the king, the lawgiver. We speak of a cosmic principle that inhabits the collective unconscious. The father, in his archetypal sense, is the force that names, that discriminates, that orders the chaos. He is the wall that protects the city, the tower that watches the horizon. In every culture, we find his face, Zeus on Olympus, with his thunderbolt of order, Odin. The All-Father, seeking wisdom, the Old Testament God, delivering the tablets of the law. He is the symbol of daytime consciousness, of logos, the word that cuts, defines, and creates structure. But as Jung taught us in every line of his work, where there is light, a shadow is inevitably cast. The father archetype is no exception. This universal presence that offers us stability is the same one that, in its negative polarity, offers us stagnation. The same throne that holds the wise king can become the prison of the tyrant king. Our journey today is not just to understand what the father is, but how this bipolar force shapes our psyche, our societies, and our individual quest for wholeness, for individuation. We are about to dive deep into the duality of authority, into the fine line between the order that liberates and the tyranny that imprisons. To understand who we are, we must first understand the vast, ancient presence that gave us form. And if you feel this exploration resonates with your own inner search, consider subscribing to this channel, as this is why we exist, to map the depths of the soul. The father archetype is, in its purest essence, the principle of structure. If the mother archetype is the embrace of the unconscious, the primordial ocean from which all things come and to which all things return, the father is the act of separation. He is the rock that emerges from the sea, the firm land. The father is the logos, the word, the discriminating consciousness. It is the force that says, this is not that. He is the one who establishes boundaries, who builds cities, who writes laws. Think of the figure of the wise king, so prevalent in our tales. He rules not by brute force that belongs to undifferentiated tyranny, but by wisdom, by justice, by maintaining the order that allows life to flourish. This is the positive senex. He represents the continuity of culture, the transmission of knowledge, the stability of the realm. In the individual psyche, this archetype functions as an internal organizer. It is the voice that impels us toward discipline, focus, and achievement in the external world. It is the architect of our psychic reality. When this archetype is healthy and integrated, we feel a sense of purpose, an ability to act effectively in the world. We feel we have a place and a duty. He provides us with the necessary know, the limit that protects us from being dissolved by chaos or the formless demands of the unconscious, the devouring side of the mother. This positive father is the mentor, the guide. He does not give us the fish, he teaches us to fish, giving us the structure so we can face the world on our own. He is the representation of spirit, as opposed to matter, of heaven, as opposed to earth. He is abstract order, the concept, the law that governs the cosmos and society. Without him, life would be a perpetual drift in the ocean of unrealized potential. He is the pillar that supports the ceiling of our consciousness, allowing light to enter and illuminate what was once only undifferentiated darkness. This is the blessing of the father, clarity, form, structure. For the individual consciousness, the ego, to be born, something drastic must occur. The child, in its initial state, lives in a state of mystical participation with the mother. Jung, referencing the ancient symbol, called this the Ouroboros, the serpent biting its own tail, the perfect, circular, unconscious state of wholeness, where there is no distinction between subject and object. It is the paradise of non-differentiation. However, for life to proceed, for the individual to become an individual, this circle must be broken. And here, the father archetype plays its most crucial role. He is the blade that cuts the psychic umbilical cord. While the mother represents fusion, the father represents separation. He introduces the law, the no, the limit. This intervention, though often felt as traumatic, the expulsion from Eden, is absolutely essential for the formation of the ego. The father is the force that pulls us out of the comfortable maternal unconsciousness and forces us to face the world as a separate entity. He gives us a name, an identity, a position in the social structure. The persona, our social mask, is largely a construction based on the expectations and laws of the father world. The father challenges us. He demands competence, achievement, adaptation to external reality. If the mother loves us unconditionally just for existing, the father offers a conditional love. You will be loved if you follow the rules, if you succeed, if you honor tradition. This sounds harsh, and it is, but it is this pressure that forges the ego, giving it strength and resilience. Without the father's challenge, the ego would remain weak, infantile, perpetually dependent, unable to bear the tensions of life. The father archetype, therefore, is not just a builder of external worlds. He is the primary agent in the architecture of our individual consciousness, the catalyst that compels us to leave the nest and begin the arduous but necessary journey of individuation. The archetypal father is, by definition, the bearer of history. He is the personification of tradition, the voice of past generations echoing into the present. He is the senex, the wise old man, but also the lawgiver. In Rome, he was the pater familias, who held absolute power over the family, but also the responsibility to maintain order and honor the ancestors. This facet of the archetype is linked to time, continuity, and collective morality. The father is the embodiment of accumulated wisdom, of rules that have been tested by time and proven effective for the survival and prosperity of the group. When Moses descends from Sinai, he does not bring his personal opinions, he brings the law, etched in stone, a perfect symbol of the unchanging, structuring nature of the paternal logos. This law is impersonal. It does not care about our individual feelings, it cares about the cohesion of the whole. In the psyche, this voice of tradition acts as the superego, in Freudian terms, but Jung would see it more broadly. It is the collective moral conscience that we internalize. It tells us what is right and wrong, based on the consensus of our culture. This aspect of the father gives us a sense of belonging, of roots, of being part of something larger than ourselves. It offers a map for navigating the complexity of social life. He is the foundation upon which institutions are built: government, church, university. All are manifestations of the desire for order, permanence, and the transmission of knowledge, all attributes of the father. However, it is precisely here, in this fortress of wisdom, that the first cracks of the shadow begin to appear. What happens when tradition stops serving life and starts demanding life and sacrifice? Every archetype possesses a duality. The brightest light casts the darkest shadow. The father archetype, being a force of immense structural power, carries within it an equally colossal shadow. The shadow of the father is the corruption of his best qualities. Order transforms into rigidity. Wisdom transforms into dogma. Authority transforms into authoritarianism. This is the birth of the negative senex, the devouring father. The Greek myth of Cronus or Saturn, for the Romans, is the primordial image of this shadow. Cronus, the titan who rules the cosmos, hears a prophecy that he will be dethroned by one of his children. His fear of the new, his inability to yield power, leads him to devour his own children as soon as they are born. This is a psychic metaphor of devastating power. The negative father is the conservative force that refuses to die. He is the structure that has become so rigid it no longer allows the flow of life, creativity, or the new. In the individual psyche, this manifests as a relentless inner critic, a paralyzing perfectionism, a terrifying fear of breaking the rules. It is the father who says, "You will never be good enough," or "do it my way," or "don't do it at all." This shadow does not guide, it controls. It does not protect, it imprisons. The kingdom ruled by this father is not a place of flourishing, but a sterile desert where nothing new can grow. The law, which was once a map, becomes an iron cage. This is the danger of one-sided identification with the logos, the loss of eros, of connection, of soul. The father's shadow is logic taken to the extreme of cruelty, order that becomes synonymous with spiritual death, and it is a burden that many of us carry, often without knowing. If you recognize this critical voice in your life, leave a comment about how it manifests. Your story is part of this collective exploration. When the father's shadow takes complete control, the archetype reveals itself in its most destructive form, the tyrant king. This is no longer just passive rigidity. It is an active, oppressive force. The tyrant father is the embodiment of absolute control, the will to power that seeks to annihilate anything threatening its sovereignty. He is the pharaoh who enslaves, the dictator who demands blind loyalty, the inquisitor who burns any divergent thought. In the family sphere, this is the abusive father, whether physically or psychologically, who sees his children not as individuals in formation, but as extensions of his own will, objects to be molded or broken. The negative father complex, formed under the influence of this tyranny, is profoundly debilitating. The individual grows up under a cloud of fear and judgment. The tyrant's voice is internalized, becoming an inner saboteur that attacks any impulse toward autonomy, creativity, or joy. The person may become chronically submissive, unable to make decisions, or, conversely, paradoxically rebellious against all authority, unable to trust any structure, seeing tyranny everywhere. Jung would say this person is possessed by the archetype. They don't have a complex. The complex has them. The tyrant father destroys spontaneity. He demands conformity. He is the opposite of individuation, as individuation requires the courage to be unique, and tyranny demands the sacrifice of uniqueness in the name of conformity. The psychic atmosphere of the tyrant is suffocating, airless, lightless. It is the rule of a dead law, an order that serves only itself, devouring the life it was meant to protect. Freeing oneself from this possession is one of the most difficult tasks of the psychological journey. Life cannot be permanently suppressed. Where the tyrant father rules, another archetypal figure is inevitably summoned to the stage: the poor Eternus, the eternal son, the hero. The stagnation of the negative father demands a dynamic confrontation. The myth of succession of Uranus castrated by Cronus, and Cronus dethroned by Zeus is the story of this necessary rebellion. The son or daughter must, at some point, confront the established order so that the new can be born. This is not a rebellion for anarchy. It is a rebellion for renewal. The tyrant father represents the past that refuses to die. The son represents the future that insists on being born. In the journey of individuation, this is a crucial rite of passage. The individual must find the courage to challenge the old laws, the old beliefs, the old internalized structures that hold them prisoner. This is the symbolic killing of the father. It is not about destroying the literal father, but about breaking the power of the father complex over the psyche. It is the moment the individual says, "I am not your extension. I will not live under your dead law. I will find my own law." This conflict is painful. It involves guilt, fear, and a terrible sense of disloyalty. However, it is absolutely necessary. If the son does not rebel, he remains a poor Eternus in the negative sense, an infantilized adult, perpetually in the father's shadow, incapable of assuming his own authority. But if the rebellion is successful, it does not lead to chaos. It leads to a new order, an order founded on the individual's lived experience, not on the tyrant's inherited dogma. The son, having confronted the father, can now begin to become his own father. Thus far, we have explored the oppressive presence of the father. But what happens when the throne is empty? What happens when the father archetype is not tyrannical, but simply absent? This is an equally profound psychological wound, perhaps even more insidious. The absent father, whether through physical abandonment, premature death, or, more commonly, an emotionally distant and disengaged presence, creates a vacuum in the psyche. The father's function, as we've seen, is to provide structure, boundaries, order, and a sense of identity in the world. When this function fails, the individual grows up without an internal map. There is no wise king to guide, not even a tyrant to rebel against. There is only silence, emptiness. The psyche, like nature, abhors a vacuum. The person with an absent father complex will spend their life desperately searching for this lost structure. They will seek father substitutes everywhere, in authoritarian bosses, in spiritual gurus, in rigid political ideologies, in relationships with dominating partners. They project the father archetype onto external figures, hoping they will finally provide the order and validation they never had. The problem is that no external figure can fill this internal void. The search is endless and doomed to failure, because what is missing is not an external father, but the internalized paternal function. The absent father syndrome leaves the individual with weak psychic boundaries, difficulty saying no, a chronic feeling of not being good enough, and a hunger for direction. The cure here does not come from rebellion, but from an even more difficult task: construction. The person must, brick by brick, build within themselves the throne that has always been empty. The journey of individuation, the process of becoming a whole and undivided individual, requires that we face these archetypal wounds. Whether it is the wound of tyranny or the wound of absence, the cure lies in integration. We cannot simply destroy the father, as destroying the principle of order is to plunge into chaos. We cannot simply ignore the absence, as the vacuum will continue to drain our energy. The work, as Jung would say, is alchemical. It is about differentiating, separating, and then recombining the elements into a new synthesis. We must become our own parents. Integrating the inner father means making a conscious separation. It means looking at the father complex, be it positive or negative, and saying, "This is what I inherited, but it is not who I am." It requires rescuing the positive qualities of the senex: discipline, wisdom, order, the capacity for judgment. But we must do this without falling into the shadow of rigidity or tyranny. This means developing an internal authority that is not based on fear, but on consciousness. It is finding our own law, our own logos. This process often involves a deep grieving for the idealized father figure we never had. Whether the absent father or the father who was only tyrannical, we must accept the reality of our wound in order to transcend it. The successful integration of the inner wise father gives us a psychic backbone. We no longer need to seek external validation from the tyrant or external structure from the absent father. We become the source of our own order. And crucially, we balance this paternal logos with the maternal eros structure with connection, law with love. When the work of integration is complete, or rather, when it is mature, for it is never truly complete, we reach the goal of the individuation journey, the coronation of the self. The self is the center of the psyche, the archetype of wholeness, the union of all opposites. At this stage, the father is no longer an oppressive external figure or a frightening void. He has become an internal pillar of the self. The individual is no longer at war with authority, nor a slave to it. He is his own authority. The wise king and the wise queen, the integrated parental archetypes, now rule the inner kingdom together. The person who has achieved this synthesis is able to be structured without being rigid, disciplined without being punitive, wise without being dogmatic. They can honor tradition, but also know when it is time to create the new. They are no longer a rebellious puer or a tyrannical senex. They are the complete individual, the psychological adult. The coronation is symbolic. It is the recognition of the self's sovereignty over the fragmented complexes of the ego. The father, who began as an external force that shaped us and then oppressed us, has finally been internalized, transformed, and integrated as a vital part of who we are. The journey through the tyranny and emptiness of the father archetype is, ultimately, the journey to find the center of ourselves. It is the long, arduous task of building our own throne and having the courage to sit on it. And if this journey of deep self-analysis is something you value, I ask that you like this video, so this message can reach others who are also on this quest.